well, there must be a way to turn everything off, because as soon as something comes up, I got a message and it threw off the video. Or maybe it did. The viewers are still there, but yeah. Anyway, we'll see. So, what was I just saying? What was the last thing I said? Bhakti Siddhanta. We were told that sometimes he would have people lead kirtan who couldn't sing, because he wanted people to appreciate, the essence of kirtan. Of course, in the Western world, when you're trying to engage new people or engage very young devotees, they would have a hard time with that. But anyway, he made a statement. So there is a balance between material expertise and devotion, and you can err on one side or the other. And in the case of the story we discussed last week, where Prabhupada said he liked the paintings, if you see those paintings, they're not very good. We don't have examples here. We showed them to the devotees who were in the class, because where we were reading, the devotee actually put those paintings, but there's no detail. Basically, there's no detail, at all. It's just, like if it's a shirt, it just looks like there's no wrinkles, there's no creases, there's no nuance, there's very little shadow. You get the picture, right? It's not primitive art, but it's like good for a high school student or a beginning college student. So Prabhupada saw it, and he liked the paintings, and he approved them, and he approved them because they were authorized. They were done properly. That was his main concern, that this was done, the paintings were done exactly according to Shastra, the way he directed it, and that's what he liked, because that's where the bhakti was, that it was authorized. And you imagine doing something really well, and it's not authorized, so then where's the bhakti, where's the devotion? So he saw the paintings, he said, these paintings are good, because you've done what I've said, you've painted a pastime, this is bona fide, you didn't make something up. And they were feeling paintings aren't good. But they were looking at it differently than Prabhupada. Prabhupada's good was, this is bona fide. And Prabhupada's good was, you did this with devotion, you did it the best you can. And later Prabhupada said, painting is like deity worship, because you're decorating Krishna. So he felt that they did the decoration with devotion, and so he was happy with that. And he said, therefore you don't have to, Krishna, you just keep painting, and if you do it in the same way with bhakti, then Krishna will direct you. So after last week's class, then I started meditating on this, and then I thought, well, I understand this, and I think specifically with kirtan, it's felt by everyone that if the kirtan leader has a lot of devotion, then the audience feels that devotion. If somebody cooks with devotion, you can taste the devotion. I mean, aside from the fact that it tastes good, and then you could even argue, Kush could even argue, but if you have the devotion, won't you do it better? And I would say yes. And I would say that's Prabhupada's point, that the devotion is the teacher, right? And so you should learn, but there's another element that you can't learn, which is the devotion, and if you just learn it externally, it won't taste the same, because people learn in our cooking class, and they cook, and they say, but it doesn't taste the same as when you cook it. It's being cooked by a devotee with devotion, and even that tastes different, right? So that's true. So there you have a balance of expertise, but then you need a certain level of expertise, but then beyond that, you can feel the devotion. And we talked about this morning in class, how you can feel the devotion of a kirtaneer who is not a great musician, but has a lot of devotion. Like there's so many nice devotees, and everyone wants to hear their kirtan, not because they're great kirtaneers, but they have a lot of devotion, and their kirtans are ecstatic. Right? So, I think that's clear to everybody. With prasadam and kirtan, it's very clear. With art, it wasn't so clear until we read this. Prabhupada appreciated paintings which were like high school students or beginning college students, as compared to the quality later on that Prabhupada rejected, that was on the level of highly trained artists, and he rejected it to keep those old paintings because the new paintings weren't authorized. They weren't done properly. Materially, they were much better, but from the spiritual side, Prabhupada didn't like them, and he felt the consciousness was wrong with the artist. And from this, we can gather that Prabhupada felt that the consciousness of the artist would be transmitted through the art. And so he liked those other paintings the way that he had wanted them. They were painted that way, submissively by the artist. All right. So then the question came to my mind, maybe it's coming to your mind, but what about a teacher? You know, you can't just put a teacher in a classroom and say, you know, raise your hands to heaven, pray to God that you know how to deal with these 47 kids, all age 6. No, you wouldn't do that. Oh, you wouldn't do that unless you were a member of the Hare Krishna movement in 1972. Then you would do it. And you would do it with people who are kind of couldn't do anything else, and so you find the people who couldn't do anything else and say, you're going to be the teacher, you're going to be the ashram leader, because if you could actually do something useful, we would engage you in doing that. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but it was a little bit like that. You know, you have nice devotees, but they're burned out in their service. So, okay, what are we going to do with you? Oh, we'll make you a teacher or an ashram leader, unfortunately. So we did that, and as many of you may know, the results were not good in every case. I'm not saying that in some cases. In some cases, the results were actually good. People had a natural knack for dealing with kids, inspiring them, taking care of them. But in some cases, it wasn't good. You had the same problem with managers. In some cases, they mismanaged funds. They made bad decisions. They were autocratic. They didn't take feedback from the congregation. They weren't good with people. They created a lot of ill feelings towards them or the leadership or the temple. Or maybe even created divisions amongst devotees. So then you would think, well, shouldn't the leaders be, people are going to be leaders, shouldn't they be trained? Because that requires information. Right? And this could affect other people. Now, where we got a little confused with what seems common sense, that these are services that should be trainable, where we got confused is Prabhupada wrote me a letter when I was temple president, and I was never trained, and he just said, depend on Krishna and he'll guide you. Which is like, oh, okay. So does that mean we don't train anybody? Or I think what it means is you have to understand what services you need training in, and you also have to understand what you're actually trainable in. There's certain things you won't be trainable. These are just things that will come from Krishna by doing the service. And there are certain things that you'll need to learn. Like, I don't know accounting, so if I'm going to run a temple, I need to learn accounting. Maybe Krishna will reveal it to me. Some people, he will. But if he doesn't, then it's a problem. Right? Then I may not be able to balance my sheet, and I may start writing checks that bounce, and so I need to know how to do this. Right? So that's pretty clear. But maybe for you, you're good with numbers, so we just show you an Excel sheet and say, and you look at the categories and you go, oh, that's simple, right? We spend money in these 10 categories, I write it here. Income comes in, it goes in this category, I balance this every day. Yeah, that's easy, I can do that, because you have that nature. So in your case, we could say, yeah, we'll just do it. And if you have any questions, ask the last accountant who's doing the service. So that might be there also, right? But in certain areas, obviously, you don't want to take a chance, right? Prabhu, I'll do the operation. I chanted 64 rounds to do all today, so let's try the heart surgery. I'm good with knives. You know, obviously you wouldn't do that. So that's not exactly what Prabhupada's point was. His point was to distinguish where material expertise is not needed, where it is needed, where bhakti is needed, how much is needed. And I think ultimately what Prabhupada is showing is that bhakti is always more important. Of course, as we said before, if you have bhakti, then you would say, well, I should have material expertise. And we're not denying that. But when material expertise, when that focus is that I need material expertise to bring it up to a certain standard, as we said in kirtan, it's not necessary. In painting, it wasn't necessary. In other areas, like in book distribution. Another very interesting thing that Prabhupada said about book distribution. As you may know, Prabhupada wanted his books distributed widely, and he was really pushing devotees to do that. So some devotees thought, well, if Prabhupada wants us to distribute books, why don't we take the most successful book distributors and then, what's the word I'm using for it? Put it, when you take information and you put it into a system, a training system, codify. Yeah, like codify the art of book distribution. And we have book distribution seminars. Many of those are not book distribution, not highly oriented to book distribution techniques, but book distribution consciousness and lifestyle, how to live and think so you can distribute books. And I'm sure this devotee was also thinking of that, but he was also thinking of actual techniques, and he had an opportunity to present that to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said something interesting, and it adds a lot to this discussion. He said he didn't like the idea that much. It was like, okay, which again is the balancing. How much of that do you need for any given service? So he said it's all right, but he said it's artificial. And what he meant is that, well, then he went on to say every man is his own genius. So he said, if you're telling someone this is how to sell this, it's a little artificial because on his own, he'll figure out the best way to do it the way that suits him. And that's where Krishna comes in, who gives you that inspiration how to do it. So I personally seen devotees who by nature are kind of quiet and introverted and not really what you would see as the salesman type, go on book distribution and true to their style would do worse than everyone else. But they liked book distribution and they continued year after year. And somehow or other they didn't change their personality, not somehow or other they didn't change their personality. They didn't change their personality, obviously, but somehow or other they became really good book distributors who were very bold, very extroverted, so they're very comfortable doing it, and Krishna showed them over the years. It's an austerity, and you get the power from that, right? So Prabhupada's point was, okay, it's okay if you want to show them, like, okay, you want to go on book distribution, this is what I say this, say that, give the book, when you give the book, say that, don't say this. When you ask for a donation, ask it politely this way, don't pressure them, don't make them feel like they have to, I show you all the things, and I say, this is what people like, this is what we found works. But inevitably, what you'll find down the road is that although everyone was trained the same way, 6 months, 3 months, a year later, everybody's doing kind of a little bit different the way that works. It's the same flavor, but it's nuanced because we're individuals. So that's what Prabhupada's point was, that it can be artificial to try to just look at something externally or technically, as opposed to, well, this is my own nature, my own way I want to approach Krishna, and it becomes more of your own devotion the way I want to apply it. So that's another example where being too mechanistic would ruin it. And we have the same problem with anything that requires a certain external standard. There's a tendency to make it too mechanistic. In doing puja, there's a way you do puja, and there's a certain number of circles you offer different parts of the deity's body. So that's a very standard system, and you can't get away from that. And there are certain times those artiques go on, and you have to learn all those things, right? So you can't get away from that. But what's the essence of deity worship? Is it the 7 circles? What if you did 6 on one deity? But you did it with devotion, better than 7 without, right? So we see the same thing with japa. Sometimes it gets mechanistic. We have to pronounce properly, and then the focus becomes on pronunciation, not on the bhakti. So do we have to pronounce properly? Yeah, we do. But Like one time Prabhupada said, even if you don't pronounce properly, Krishna knows who you're calling. So, Hare Krishna. In South America, Hare Krishna. It's not how you say Krishna's name. You say Krishna. And nobody says Krishna unless they're Indian. So my theory is that most of the devotees in the Hare Krishna movement are not pronouncing Krishna's name properly. They're chanting 16 names of someone other than Krishna. Right? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So if you don't chant like that, everyone, you're going to go to a planet where people don't pronounce the holy name. Only kidding. You didn't know there was a planet for those people, did you? Yeah. Well. So Prabhupada was told this, and he said, your devotees, some Sanskrit, someone who knows Sanskrit said to Prabhupada, your devotees don't know. They don't pronounce properly. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Brahma, Brahma Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So this Sanskrit man is hearing these Americans chant like that, and he's this is not how you chant. And Prabhupada said, yes, I know. He said, but Krishna knows who they're calling. So, but then we heard that I think the most interesting thing is that we heard that some of the Chinese people can't say Krishna, they say Krishna, because there's no R sound. I mean, I've been around Chinese people, they can, but perhaps in the beginning they can. And so does that mean their Maha Mantra is useless? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. The whole first line is not pronounced properly. Hare Lama, Hare Lama. The whole second line is pronounced wrong. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Lama. So apparently some of them chant that way. But even though they're chanting that way, they're becoming devotees and they're advancing. So is it the exact pronunciation, or is it the mood? Where's the potency in the Maha Mantra? If you mispronounce it and it still works. Isn't that interesting? You could do a PhD on that. How mantras work even when you mispronounce them if you chant them with devotion. Isn't that interesting? Would that be an interesting topic? You don't want to go back to school and do that. We want to do we had as a side point, we had a class, when was it? Was it the Sunday feast or the morning class where Axel's here? I gave him all the material for writing a thesis on will the smoking of marijuana, is it good for, the
spreading of Krishna consciousness.
Was smoking of marijuana good for the spreading of Krishna consciousness? Because when I was young, it was very good for the spreading of Krishna consciousness. And anyway, so what was I saying before?
About potency of the holy.
Yeah, the potency of the Hare Krishna, the Hare Krishna mantra is very powerful. Prabhupada certainly knew we weren't pronouncing it properly. In fact, I don't remember Prabhupada ever trying to teach us how to pronounce it, which adds fuel to my theory. But anyway, the point I was trying to make, before we digress, the point I was trying to make is that there's a human tendency to want to do things perfectly. So what's, the perfect way to pronounce it, the perfect number of, the perfect amount of time it takes to chant one round, the perfect direction, the perfect sitting posture, the perfect attitude, the perfect thought. These things are important up to a certain point, but the problem is when they become too important, then you lose the bhakti. And then the priority gets messed up. Right? So now, if you have to sign a contract to purchase land, then the material side of that is extremely important, and your level of devotion is not going to overcome a contract that you didn't fill out right. Now you could say, well, if I have a lot of devotion, I'll make sure I fill it out right. In theory, I accept that. But even if you don't have a lot of devotion, make sure you fill it out right. And I would say that is a manifestation of your devotion, that you fill it out right.
Couldn't one say that Well, the more you love Krishna, the more responsible you will be with his things.
In theory, yeah. In theory, the more you love Krishna, the more properly you'll do it. But at that moment when you have to sign the contract to get the land in Mayapur, even if you don't feel like you love Krishna, you should make sure. Now, of course, that's the point, because you're getting this for Prabhupada, so you're going to make sure you do it. But devotees who have a lot of love for Prabhupada have messed things up. So you could say, like when people ask me questions, sometimes I say, okay, here's the answer you give on the test. If they ask you that question, this is the answer you give on the test, then I give that answer. So then I have my bases covered. And I say, now here's my answer. So that's, on the Bhakti Shastri test, that's the answer you give. If you have devotion, then you would do it for Prabhupada properly. But there are a lot of people who had a lot of devotion who spaced out. All right? So therefore, then, when you're dealing with legal matters, for example, the focus is all on material perfection, because if you mess this up, it costs you money, you lose your land, and it could create so many problems, right? So it's true, that is your devotion, that you do it properly, but in that situation, doing it properly is what really counts. And then if you do it properly, I could say, applaud you for your devotion, you did this properly. But if you were somewhat ungrounded and said, well, we're going to the court with a lot of devotion, and even though we, didn't prepare the case properly, but we're doing this out of devotion to Prabhupada and I'm feeling devotional, then we'd say, okay, now that is a misunderstanding. But when you apply that to kirtan, it works. I didn't practice, I just would do spontaneously. I'm a musician, I can pull it off. I don't have to rehearse, that would be artificial. I just see the deities and I chant with devotion. Then that works, right? It works perfectly. And that's the way you're supposed to do it. So there's an adjustment according to, what you call love. Like sometimes I joke, the man tells the wife, I love you, and she says, okay, where's the new car? So sometimes it's true. You have to manifest it. And there's a book called the 5 Languages of Love, or 7 languages? 5. So one language of love is show me the diamond ring. I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. Okay, show me the diamond ring. Show it. Yeah, you have to show it. And some people, you don't have to show it, you just have to say it. So then the guy gives the woman a diamond ring, and then a week later she says, you don't love me. He says, why? I gave you a diamond ring. Yeah, but you never told me you loved me. So some people need, so even in Krishna consciousness, we're seeing here, there are different languages. But it's a more of a philosophical understanding. So the point, then it brings up what I think is a super interesting point, and I've talked about it to some degree or not. If you want to ask questions or make comments, please do, so that I know. When I'm giving these classes, I can't see you, so I don't know if you're falling asleep. I don't know if you're doing your email while I'm talking. I don't know if you're reading a book while I'm talking. I don't know if I'm losing you. So if you want to write comments, even if it says, wow, what you said is amazing, at least I know you're actually there listening. But if you want to ask questions, that's also perfect. And so one of these things you come up with in practicing bhakti is the concept that bhakti means devotion, and then you're confronted with this reality when you start to become purified that you're very selfish. And then you think, how can a selfish person have devotion? Because devotion is the opposite of being selfish. And we discussed this, I think, in the first class on this topic. Love means you want to satisfy another person's senses, and selfishness means you want to satisfy your senses. So now you come to spiritual life, you read Bhagavad Gita, where it says, offer me with love and devotion. Patra pushpam palam toyam, whatever, it's a flower, a fruit, water, offer it with devotion. Patra pushpam phalam tam yo me bhakta. Bhakta. Prachati, offer with devotion. And then Ashnami, I will accept it. So then you naturally ask yourself, okay, I understand that. That makes sense. It's not about what you offer. It's not about the gift. It's about the mood. What's the saying? It's not what you give. It's the thought that counts. So we know that from the material world. So it makes sense. And then naturally the devotee thinks, but I don't have any love. So how does this work? Right? How am I supposed to offer this with devotion when for the last million lifetimes all I ever thought was about offering things to myself? So obviously I don't have any devotion. So and we're talking, this class is all about love. What is love? And it would be kind of unkind of me to say to all of you, you all have no love, and it would be more unkind for you to say that to yourself, that I have no love, because that would make you feel pretty low and useless and rotten and practically uncivilized to say I have no love. So, but when you understand what love of God is, then you normally say, I have no love, and you can verify that on your Bhakti Shastra test by saying I'm in the stage of Bhajana Kriya, which definitely certifies I have no love. Right? I mean, that's what Bhajana Kriya means. It means I have no love. Prema, bhava, these are stages of love. Bhajana Kriya is stage of practice. Practice, I'm practicing to love. We can't use those definitions entirely for ourselves, because if we feel I have no love, number one, when Krishna says offer me with love and devotion, and deity worship is meant to be love and devotion, and we should paint with bhakti, we should sing with bhakti, we should cook with bhakti, then it's a dilemma. So how do I do that if I don't have it? Right? And so you have to start defining love according to your position. What in my position, what does love mean? So then the easiest way is say, well, Krishna likes Mangalarti sweets made with these ingredients, so I cook them. That's my love. Then we go back to this. Okay, is it mechanical? Is it just learning how to do it? Is that love? And the answer is, to some degree, it is. Because if you just go in the kitchen and say, well, I'm going to cook, I'm going to get spontaneous and just cook what I think Krishna would like, and I'm going to do it with a lot of devotion. But there's a standard for Mangalarti, right? Burfi, sandesh, yogurt. In the morning? No. Kheer and rasgulla. Yes? Yeah, is that correct?
I remember what sounds nice.
Mango sweets,
Huh?
sandesh, kheer, fruit and hot milk.
When?
In the morning, it's 5 things.
That's at Mangalarti? No. Well, that's crazy. That's more than you're supposed to. Anyway, but Krishna likes certain things. So if you have devotion, you make those things. And then if you have devotion, you make those things that Krishna likes with devotion. So then we got the first half okay. Well, I could do that. I know Krishna wants this. So then I can say that's my devotion, I do that. But then how do I give devotion in the offering? Because I don't have devotion. So then we're taught, no, what you do is when you cook, you think this is for Krishna's enjoyment. That's your devotion. You put that consciousness, you put that hat on. I don't taste, I don't smell. I don't think about eating, this is for Krishna's enjoyment. So then that's your bhakti on that level. That's the best you can do. Right? So I do kirtan. How do I chant with devotion? Because Mahaprabhu says I have to be more humble than a blade of grass, and I'm the proudest person that ever walked the face of the planet. So how can I actually chant with devotion? And then for that moment you think, okay, I'm going to chant not to show off for anybody. I'm just going to chant to please Krishna and sincerely pray to Krishna that I become a pure devotee. And that's what I'm going to do right now. And that's the best I can offer. Right? So your devotion has to be relative to what you can offer. When I stop the kirtan, I might walk out of the temple and think, hey, that was a good kirtan, Shh, I'm the man, I might think that way. But at least while I was doing it, I didn't think that way. I mustered up devotion, so that's the best I could do, and I did it. And that's my bhakti there. Right? I'm going to go out and distribute books. How do I do it bhakti? Because my spiritual master or Srila Prabhupada asked me to, and as a service to them, I'm going to go out in the hot sun or the cold winter and approach people who may not be happy to be approached, who may say something that's very unkind, but out of love for them, you could call it love, affection, desire to please, whatever you want to call it. At least I want to please them. And that's where it starts for us. I want to please them. That's your mood. That's your love in this stage of devotional service. And the most fantastic thing, I'll get to your comments in a minute. I asked for comments and I got 27. Okay. Life is exciting. Just see my Shakti. I just ask, I say, write something. So, what was I just saying? The very last thing. About
about doing things with devotion, even if you don't feel it, so
you do it to please. Oh yeah. So you're doing it. Your mood is, I'm doing this to please Krishna, or Prabhu, can you clean the bathroom? Start with the toilet. Okay. How do I clean the toilet with devotion? I think Prabhupada says in the Gita, you think Krishna wants me to do this, so I'm doing. If it's up to me, I wouldn't clean the toilet, but I'm cleaning it to please my temple commander, ultimately to please Prabhupada, and to please Krishna. So now, the wonderful thing about Krishna consciousness is the spiritual master. And what's so wonderful about the spiritual master? Because there's a person you have a relationship with. So, when you talk about pleasing the spiritual master, it's very natural and spontaneous. And you develop this kind of affection and love for the spiritual master that you cannot develop for Krishna at this stage of life. So you have this kind of transcendental duality where you say, I'm just on the stage of bhajan or kriya, I don't really have much love for Krishna, but I actually feel like just giving my life to my spiritual master. Isn't that amazing? So that's Krishna's system to extract this devotion. So if you say, I just want to please my spiritual master, I just want to surrender, I just want to serve, that's genuine. And that's like the best we can get on a lower stage. Right? And even it starts mimicking higher stages of devotion. So it's like you get this more intense form of love even though you're on a lower stage of Krishna consciousness. That's how people became devotees. Just that mercy came, they saw Prabhupada, they were attracted. They had a lot of affection and love for Prabhupada and said, I'll do anything for you. You're giving me so much, I just want to repay you. And so there was so much devotion coming in. Right? And that's what Prabhupada appreciated. And on Saturday night we had Vyas Puja, and I remember one of my godbrothers, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, my wife told me that there was one devotee making an offering. Everybody was coming and reading. And then one devotee made an offering. I think it was spontaneous. She was just talking, Very emotional. And you know how sometimes in ISKCON, if somebody gets emotional, then everybody, at least the brahmacharis, get antsy. It's like, come on. This is all like syrup, We're not about emotion, We're about, tapasya, austerity, strictness, and, shastric verses glorifying the Guru, And at the end of the Vyas Puja offering, that devotee who made that real emotional response, my wife, because she knows Tamal Krishna Maharaj's nature, and they had a very close relationship, she said, I know that was his favorite offering. And I said, why? She said, because it was all feeling, and that's what he appreciates. Right? So you see that disciples, they have so much feeling for their spiritual master, and that's because Krishna's arrangement, that you're in front of somebody and they're helping you, naturally you'll have feeling, right? And what are they helping you with? They're helping you with the most valuable thing you could ever get, which is Krishna. So you'll have the most feeling for that person, right? And that's why I said in my Vyas Puja offering, when Prabhupada came, he became my father. I had much more feeling for him than my own father. It was just natural. He's giving me Krishna. My father gave me a car. There's a difference between a car and Krishna. Right? And what did I do in that car? I went out with my friends and did nonsense. And Prabhupada gave me austerity, which is better than a car. He gave me the holy name. He gave me all these things. So naturally this intense affection is there. And so that's Krishna's arrangement. So you serve him like you're serving Krishna. Wow. And then it's an opportunity to manifest all this love and devotion that otherwise could only come out on the stage of, Ruchi or Sakti or Baba. Isn't that nice? So, and everyone has that natural affection. Anyway, it's just affection is it comes out so easily when you're with a person. And the spiritual master, at least Prabhupada, he just did things that would bring it out. That's just the way he was. Right? So let's go back and see what's going on online. Anuradha says, if you need to develop some abilities that require you change your attitude to properly do your service, how can we change ourselves without not being... It's skipping. I have to get to the rest of it. Anuradha, I didn't... On my... After you wrote being, after that, there's nothing else. It gets cut off line by line. So maybe... how can we change ourselves without stop being, unnatural, unloving? Sometimes, I don't know. Well, let's see what her question is. I'll try to answer what I think it is. Sometimes... Actually, I'm not sure what your question is. Why don't you finish the sentence after stop being properly? You don't have abilities that are required. Oh yeah, okay. Well, anyway, I'll answer a question. I don't know if this is your question, but I'll answer it and you can see. One of the things I noticed is that, okay, you don't have abilities to do certain service, right? Then you might, in that situation, not do it because you know that out of love, like I wouldn't do heart surgery on Kush out of love, right? Because I love you, I won't do heart surgery. I will take you to a heart surgeon because I know I lack an ability. Just like I counsel devotees, and occasionally they'll come to me with a problem, and I'll say, "You should go to a professional." Right? So they might say, "But you don't love me. That's why you don't want to talk to me." No, I'm sending you a professional because I love you. So sometimes not doing something is a manifestation of your love because if you do it, you're not capable. And that particular service, it needs capabilities. It's not just about Krishna revealing, but it's a specific service that is not exactly what Krishna will reveal. That's something you actually have to learn from a teacher or from a book. So then love becomes don't do it. Or like some men, they know, like there may be a woman that wants to marry them, but they know that they'll not make good husbands. They know they're very independent. They know they're very selfish. They're not caring people. And they just say, out of my respect for you, I'm going to refuse because I would make you miserable, and I know that. And out of my respect or even my love for you, I'm not going to do it. Because if I did, I would hurt you. Does that make sense? And so sometimes you're asked to take on a position and you're not good with people, and you say, that's not a good position for me. Because when I was in that position in the past, people got very frustrated with me. Because when I have to get things done, I'm just hard on people. I just want to get it done, and I treat them like they're, privates in the army. And it's just, I can't control it, so it's better I don't do it. So that, there may be situations like that where you realize that for Krishna's service, you shouldn't do this. We should find somebody who can do it, because if I do it, I'll mess it up. Right? Now, there are cases where there is no one to do it and you have to do it. And so in that case, you do your best. You pray to Krishna. Please give me intelligence, give me ability, change me, help me. But we have a nature. I may be Kshatriya, you may not be, and now you're asked to lead. And it's hard for you. For me, it's easy. And so I train you as best I can, but still not easy for you. It doesn't come naturally. Just because you're trained doesn't mean you're going to do it. It may not come natural, and you'll always, intuitively do the wrong thing. And people who are intuitive, even without training, often do better than people who are trained. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
Somebody comes out with this education in a particular area, but they're not so in tune to that consciousness. And someone else, somehow or other, he just knows how to do it, and he's actually better, more successful at it. Even though the other one knows it by the book. That happens. So Anuradha, I don't know if that's what you're asking, but if not, I will hear from you. Yeah, and then Kim says, we were saying, when I was asking, well, what is love? When you don't have love, what is love? And so Kim said, it's wrapped in kindness. And I like that point. And so I don't have love, but I act lovingly. That's another aspect, We should love the devotees. Then you go back to that same idea. Well, I know I should love the devotees, but I'm a very selfish person. All right, so that's okay. So act with kindness, act with devotion, and act as a certain, do the acts of love even if you don't have it. So that's another aspect. In Vaidhi Bhakti, it's the acts of love. Maybe I don't feel it, but I do the act. And this is what's proper. This is the proper action. That would be a manifestation of my love for you. I'll be kind to you. Even if we have a fight or I don't like you, I'll be kind to you. So I think that's a good point. We made, one of the points I made in the class on vows, which I thought was really, really important, we ended up talking about humility and what is real humility and what is fake humility. And then I said, I think for us, humility means how to manifest. Humility manifests in good dealings with the devotees. We can talk about trying to feel lower than a blade of grass, and I said, you can't really feel lower than a blade of grass until you feel lower than a blade of grass. You know what I mean? Okay, on the count of 3, I want everyone to feel lower than a blade of grass. 1, 2, 3. Okay, go. Feel lower than a blade of grass right now. Okay, work on it. Feel lower than a blade. How does it feel? Are you feeling? Do you feel it yet? Can you relate to that blade of grass? Who's feeling it? Lower than a blade of grass, that means. Everyone's walking on my head. I like it. Feet on my head. I like it. Lower than a blade. Yeah, I'm feeling it. No. Can you do that? No. You feel lower than a blade of grass when you feel lower than a blade of grass. And that's because you're in a very high level of Krishna consciousness. You feel that way. So can you think? Okay, because Mahaprabhu said, thinking yourself, not feeling it. Maybe one place Prabhupada translated as feeling. But thinking yourself lower than a blade of grass will naturally happen when you feel it, because you have love of Krishna. So before that, then how would I act? If I actually thought I was lower than a blade of grass, how would I act? Would I fight with everybody, criticize everybody? Would I cooperate or not cooperate? Then you understand, for us, thinking lower than a blade of grass has to manifest in action. So I cooperate. That's being lower than a blade of grass means, being humble means I cooperate, I don't criticize, and so forth. So that's really important for us. And I was making this point, which I thought was really important, is if you focus on lower than a blade of grass in theory and then walk around trying to feel it, you could adjust between feeling lower than a blade of grass, feeling like a worm in stool. What else could you feel like? Like, if people say my name, they'll become sinful. This is what Krishnadas Kaviraj said. If you say my name, you'll become sinful. He actually felt that way. So if you try to imitate that, you just get yourself in trouble. And then I was making the point that by trying to do that, you may try to do that, and it's so artificial for you that you'll sit in a meeting and simultaneously try to feel like a blade of grass or worm in a stool and end up in a fight, an argument with somebody. Right? Have you ever seen that? The devotee who's walking around the temple, Prabhu, your toenails are brighter than a million moons, and for me it's just darkness everywhere. When I walk into a bright room, the room turns dark. So, and that devotee gets in a big fight. So we've seen that. So that just doesn't work. So that's, you manifest your love. You have to see it and show it. So that's a very good point. Right? I heard a story about devotees who was offering the Lord, but he said that you've given me some things, I want you to give me something more. I offer you all my sins, my ill thoughts, mistakes to your feet, because on my own you didn't give those to me. Everything gets, it's hard. I think we need to do on this is write sentences. I'll tell you how many words in the sentence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, write 10 words in a sentence. And then do another chat message with 10 words, and then I'll be able to read it. Because it's going to the next line, but a few words are getting cut off, and it never opens up your... So then I have to try to figure out what you're saying. Heard a story about a devotee who was offering to the Lord, but he said, this would be like a game. He said that you things, okay, what are the words missing between that and you things? You things that you have given them, but today I want to offer you something blank. Offer you all. He said, I want to offer you things that I've never given before. Today I offer you something I've never given you. I offer you all my ill thoughts, sins, mistakes to your lotus feet, because on my own you didn't give those to me. I don't understand the last line. On my own you didn't give those to me. Anybody can, if you can fill that in, Guru Nishta. No, I think what she's saying is, the Lord said, today, why don't you give me the things you've never offered, like your ill thoughts, your sins, and all these things. You can give those to me. Well, that's nice. I like that. That's what it means, right? My mistakes, all these things. Krishna's saying, give those things to me. You haven't given those to me. So that's also, I think, Gurnish is saying, that's also an aspect of love. Because I have all these bad things. Okay, I'll offer them to Krishna, to you, and then I won't use them anymore. You just take them away. You can put them in your trash pile. My ill thoughts and so on. Okay. Now, we get back to Anuruddha. It says, without being yourself, how can you change? Oh, I didn't see it. Without being yourself, how can you develop abilities to serve? Without changing